My ex posted, "Living my best life with a real man." 3 weeks later, she showed up at my door crying because he left her with nothing. I'm James, 32 years old, male, and if I'm being honest, I still don't know how to even start talking about my ex, Rachel. She's 30, and for years she was my everything. We were together for 6 years, engaged for one. I thought we had one of those we survived all the bullshit together kinds of relationships. You know, broke 20s, cheap apartments, splitting ramen and bills, all of it. I thought those years meant something. Turns out, it meant nothing to her. Rachel's always had this magnetic thing about her. She could walk into a room and people just gravitated toward her. Loud laugh, shiny hair, those big expressions that made everyone feel like they were in on the joke. I was the quieter one. Steady job in IT, not flashy, just reliable. I figured we balanced each other out. She needed someone grounded, and I needed someone who lit up the dark corners of life. That's what I told myself anyway. But over time, I started noticing she craved more than what we had. She wanted luxury, Instagram trips, dinner dates at places that charged $20 for bread. I was saving for a house. She was saving, well, she wasn't saving at all. The cracks really showed the last year. We'd fight about stupid things. Me not being romantic enough. Her blowing half her paycheck on outfits she wore once. And then there was this guy, Trevor. He was 35, a gym rat finance bro with a Tesla and a condo downtown. He slid into her life like he was the missing piece. I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten until one night, out of nowhere, she said, "James, you're safe, but you're boring." That gutted me. A month later, she moved out. No huge fight, no screaming match. Just a note on the counter and her key left in a mug we bought together at some stupid street fair. 2 weeks after that, I saw her post on Instagram, "Living my best life with a real man." A photo of her on Trevor's balcony, champagne in hand, city skyline behind them. I can't even describe how that felt. Like someone took the 6 years I gave her, balled them up, and tossed them in the trash without a second thought. Friends texted me screenshots. My mom asked if I was okay. I pretended I was fine, but every night I'd just sit there, scrolling through her feed, seeing her draped over him, captions about soulmates, and finally being seen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break my phone. Instead, I just sat in the silence of our half-empty apartment, convincing myself I'd get over it. 3 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. Midnight. I thought it was a neighbor at first. When I opened it, there was Rachel, mascara smeared, hair a mess, shaking like she'd been through hell. She didn't even say hi. She just broke down crying, collapsed against me, and choked out, "He left me, James. He took everything. I have nowhere to go." And in that moment, seeing the girl who said I was boring crumbling on my doorstep, my brain split in two. Half of me wanted to slam the door. The other half, the stupid half, still remembered how it felt to love her. Rachel standing on my doorstep that night wasn't just random karma. It was the full circle of years I should have seen coming. Looking back, all the red flags were there, waving in my face, and I just kept folding them into paper cranes, pretending they were something beautiful. See, Rachel had this way of turning every little disagreement into a test. If I said I didn't feel like going out because money was tight, she'd get quiet, then suddenly post a photo later captioned, "Never settle for less than you deserve." I'd scroll past it in bed, lying right next to her, pretending like she didn't just aim that at me. She thrived on this image of herself as a woman destined for more, like she was auditioning for a life she thought I could never give her. Her friends didn't help either. They were the champagne brunch crowd, heels at 11 a.m., talking about manifesting their dream men. I'll never forget sitting in Rachel's living room while one of them, a girl named Kelsey, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're sweet, James, but Rachel's a diamond. She needs someone who can actually shine with her." Rachel didn't even defend me. She just laughed and poured more mimosas. That stuck with me. I kept pushing forward, though. I thought if I just worked harder, saved more, planned bigger, I'd prove I was enough. I'd surprise her with small things, flowers after work, a weekend road trip, but she always managed to shift the goalposts. "Thanks, babe," she'd say, smiling but already scrolling her phone. "But wouldn't it be amazing if we went to Bali instead?" And then came Trevor. The so-called real man. I didn't even know about him at first. Rachel started working late more often, or going out with friends, coming home with that faint smell of cologne that wasn't mine. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe I was paranoid. But then, bam, Instagram made it official. Her wrapped around Trevor, glass in hand, grinning like she'd just leveled up in life. And me? I was just a forgotten save file. So when she showed up crying at my door 3 weeks later, my mind was a tornado. She was shaking, rambling, mascara staining the hoodie she'd thrown on. Between sobs, I pieced it together. Trevor had swept her in fast, promising her the kind of life she bragged about. But he wasn't stupid. He had her sign some kind of financial agreement before she moved in, and when he got bored, he cut her off cold. Account access revoked. Bags packed in trash bags and left in the lobby. She went from sipping champagne on his balcony to begging for a couch to sleep on. Standing there, holding herself up against my doorway, she whispered, "James, I didn't know where else to go. Please, just, please." And here's the sick part. I hesitated. Not because I wanted her back, but because a part of me wanted to see just how far she would fall. Don't forget to subscribe. I should have shut the door. God, I replay that moment 100 times in my head. Slam the door, walk away, go to bed. But instead, I stepped aside. Maybe it was muscle memory from years of loving her. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was the masochist in me wanting to watch her squirm. Whatever it was, I heard myself say, "Come in." She collapsed onto my couch like it was still hers. Same spot she used to binge reality shows from. Same cushions where we'd fought about bills and dreams and Trevor probably months before he had a name. She hugged a pillow to her chest and cried so hard she shook. I stood in the doorway watching her, feeling this weird mix of anger and nostalgia. For a second, I remembered the early days. Her head on my shoulder, laughing at stupid memes, the way she'd call me safe, and I thought it meant home. Now it just sounded like boring. After she calmed down a little, she started talking. It all came out in this messy, rambling storm. Trevor had swept her in with promises, dinners at places where the valet costs more than my rent, clothes she never could have afforded. She thought she'd finally found her level. Her words, not mine. But the whole time, he was setting her up. Her name on nothing, no savings left, no backup plan. When he was done with her, he didn't just dump her, he humiliated her, tossed her things in the lobby like she was trash. She said he called her replaceable. Hearing that word, yeah, it hit me. Replaceable. That's exactly how she'd treated me. Still, I let her stay the night. I gave her a blanket and the guest pillow, told myself it was just one night because I wasn't heartless. But in the morning, I found her in the kitchen like nothing had changed. Hair tied up, drinking coffee from the mug she used to claim as hers, scrolling her phone like she belonged. "Thanks for letting me crash," she said, all casual, like she hadn't detonated my life a month ago. I didn't know where else to go. I just nodded, but inside, alarms were blaring. One night had already turned into, I didn't know where else to go. By day 3, her stuff was slowly creeping back in. A duffel bag here, makeup on the bathroom counter, shoes by the door. She was still a wreck, crying at random. But there was this undertone I recognized: manipulation. Rachel had always been good at turning weakness into leverage. That third night, she actually tried to curl up next to me on the couch while we watched TV. Like muscle memory. Like the last 6 years hadn't been shredded on Instagram for everyone to see. I froze, then stood up, pretending I needed water. She looked up at me with those watery eyes and whispered, "I made a mistake, James. Trevor wasn't real. You were. You always were." And here's the kicker. I didn't believe her for a second. But part of me wondered just how far she'd go now that she was cornered. The thing about Rachel is that she never knew how to handle the word no. Back when we were together, a no meant she'd sulk, guilt trip, maybe post some passive-aggressive quote online. But now, cornered, humiliated, stripped of her shiny new life, a no hit her like a slap. It started small. On day 4, I told her she couldn't just leave her stuff in my bathroom. "This isn't your place anymore," I said, trying to sound calm but firm. She froze, Mascara wand midair, then slammed it onto the counter so hard it snapped in half. "Why are you being cruel?" she shouted, like I'd just thrown her out on the street. I told her, "Rachel, you're here as a guest. That's it. This isn't permanent." Her voice dropped into that dangerous, whispery tone I remembered too well. "You're really going to leave me out there? After everything we've been through?" That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. At 2 a.m., I woke to banging. Her fists on the door, then her sobbing, begging to be let in, then screaming, "You never loved me. You just liked owning me." The next morning, one of my picture frames in the living room was shattered. My favorite one, too. The photo of me, my dad, and my younger brother fishing when I was 17. I knew she'd done it. She didn't even bother hiding the glass, just left it on the floor like a warning. I confronted her. "Rachel, if you break one more thing in this house, you're gone." She laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A sharp, manic one that didn't sound like the girl I used to know. "You think you can throw me away again? You think I'll let you?" That's when it clicked. Trevor had stripped her of everything, but I was her backup plan. And she wasn't just here to heal. She was here to sink her claws in again, because she couldn't stand being alone, being rejected. Later that day, she escalated again. I'd left for work, came home to find she'd cooked dinner. At first, it looked harmless. Chicken, pasta, candles lit. But when I told her I wasn't hungry and that she couldn't just act like we were back together, she lost it. Plates smashed against the wall, pasta dripping down my cabinets. She stood there barefoot in the shards, sobbing and screaming at the same time. "You don't get it," she yelled, voice cracking. "I picked you because you were safe. You were supposed to wait for me." Her words cut deeper than I expected. Safe, convenient, the fallback. That's all I'd ever been to her. And that's when something inside me shifted. I stopped feeling pity. I stopped feeling tempted to let her stay. I started thinking about payback. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect that first post to blow up the way it did. I honestly thought maybe a handful of people would read it and tell me I was stupid for even letting Rachel through the door. Instead, I woke up to thousands of comments, DMs, even a couple people digging through their own ex-drama in solidarity. First off, thank you. Seriously. It feels weirdly comforting to know I'm not crazy for how I've been feeling. Some of y'all had me laughing so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. My favorite comment so far: "Dude, she downgraded to Trevor 2.0 with none of the perks, and now she's trying to re-download you like an old Netflix show." Another one: "She didn't come back for love, she came back for Wi-Fi and clean towels." Accurate. Painfully accurate. Others went harder. People calling me an idiot for letting her in at all, saying I should have slammed the door in her face. Trust me, I replay that decision in my head constantly. But seeing her melt down the way she has, honestly, part of me is glad I let her in, because now I see her clearly. The mask is gone. She's not the Rachel I built up in my head all those years. She's just desperate and dangerous when cornered. A lot of you also asked if I'm scared. The truth? Yeah. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. When she smashed that plate and screamed about how I was supposed to wait for her, there was something in her eyes that didn't look like heartbreak. It looked like possession. Like she thought I was hers by default. That shook me. Here's the thing, though. Reading your comments, I realized something. I don't owe her kindness anymore. For weeks, I was stuck in this loop of pity, nostalgia, second-guessing myself. But she killed that the second she shattered that fishing photo. That picture wasn't just glass. It was one of the only things I had left of my dad. And she knew it. So yeah, something in me flipped. Call it petty, call it revenge, call it survival, I don't care. But I'm done being her backup plan. If she wanted a real man so badly, then fine. She can find out just how real I can get when I'm the one holding all the cards. I'm not going to give too much away yet, but let's just say Rachel isn't the only one who can put on a show. And when I'm done, she's going to wish Trevor leaving her with nothing was the least of her problems. Stay tuned. Revenge wasn't some lightning bolt idea. It was slow, crawling, stitching itself together in the silence after Rachel's meltdowns. Every shattered plate, every crocodile tear, every time she tried curling up next to me like she still had a claim, it all sharpened into a single truth. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. That's when I remembered something about Rachel. Image was her lifeline. Always had been. Even when we were broke, she'd scrape together money for a manicure if it meant looking perfect for Instagram. When Trevor swept her up, it wasn't love she bragged about. It was the aesthetic. Balcony photos, champagne, real man, captions. She didn't crave people. She craved their perception. So if she'd built her whole identity around appearances, I'd make sure to rip that away. I started small, subtle. The first weekend she was at my place, she begged to borrow my laptop. I told her no, blamed work. Truth was, I didn't want her anywhere near my stuff. But it gave me an idea. That night, when she finally passed out on the couch, curled in one of my hoodies like she still owned me, I scrolled through her phone. She was too drunk to lock it. And there it was, her little online kingdom. Private group chats with her brunch clique, where she'd been lying through her teeth. Talking about how Trevor and I are still figuring things out, and James is just letting me crash until I find a new place. Painting me like some sad doormat she was stringing along. That stung. But it also gave me ammo. Next day, I played it cool. I made her coffee, asked about her job hunt. She sighed dramatically, said Trevor had blacklisted her socially, that people didn't want to be seen with her. She dropped the line, "James, you're the only one left who believes in me." I almost laughed. Because at that very moment, I was planning her social funeral. The plan wasn't about money. It wasn't about kicking her out. It was about exposure. Rachel's worst nightmare wasn't losing love. It was losing her audience. And I had front row seats to her lies. So I started collecting. Screenshots. Notes of things she said in person that contradicted what she told her friends. Photos of the destruction she caused in my house. The broken plate. The smashed photo frame. Every crack in her facade, documented. But just gathering wasn't enough. No, I wanted this to sting. I wanted her to feel it publicly. So I waited, bided my time. And then Rachel herself handed me the perfect stage. One night she announced, like it was still her house, that she was throwing a small get-together. Just a few friends, she said. She promised she'd handle everything, that it was her way of making it up to me. That was the moment I knew. This was it. The trap. She wanted an audience? I'd give her one. Rachel threw herself into party planning mode like nothing had happened. She was humming around my kitchen, rearranging my furniture, wiping down counters she never cleaned when we lived together. It was surreal, like watching a washed-up actress rehearsing lines for a role nobody asked her to play. "This is going to be so good for me," she said one night, opening another bottle of wine she didn't pay for. "People need to see I'm okay, that I'm not some loser who got dumped." She laughed at that last part like it was a joke, but I saw her eyes flick toward me, gauging if I'd flinch. I didn't. Because I was too busy rehearsing my lines. The night of the get-together, I played along, helped set out glasses, even picked up extra snacks. She thought it meant I was softening. Truth was, I was setting the stage. Her friends showed up in their carefully curated outfits. Kelsey, the ringleader, dripping in fake designer, a couple of the influencer wannabes she used to brunch with. They walked in with that mix of pity and curiosity you see at a car crash. Rachel greeted them like a hostess, kissing cheeks, pouring drinks, laughing too loud. And for about 20 minutes, she managed to spin her narrative. "Oh, Trevor? Yeah, it just wasn't right. He wasn't ready for a real woman. Oh, James? He's just been so supportive through everything. We've reconnected, honestly." Every word tasted like ash in my mouth. But I let her talk. Let her build her tower of lies higher and higher. Because I knew exactly how I was going to topple it. When everyone was gathered in the living room, Rachel started pulling out her phone to show off old pictures. Her and Trevor at rooftop bars, her in designer dresses. Like she was proving she'd been part of a life worth envying, even if it had collapsed. That's when I stood up. Calm, quiet, almost polite. "Actually," I said, "since we're all sharing memories, maybe it's time we look at the whole story." I hooked my laptop up to the TV. One click, and suddenly the room was flooded with screenshots. Rachel's messages to her friends about how she was using James until I get back on my feet. Her trashing me as boring. Her calling me Plan B. The photos came next. Her tantrums, the smashed plate, the broken frame of my dad and brother. Every ugly piece of the person behind the performance. The room went silent except for the sound of Rachel choking on her own excuses. James, turn it off, please. This isn't funny. Her voice cracked, desperate, eyes darting to her friends. But I didn't. I let it all play out, slide after slide, until there was nothing left of her story to salvage. When it ended, I looked right at her and said, "You wanted an audience. There it is. That's the real you." Her friends didn't stick around. They slipped out one by one, murmuring excuses, avoiding her eyes. The last sound I heard before the door clicked shut was Kelsey whispering, "Jesus, Rachel," like she'd just seen something rotten crawl out of the walls. Rachel stood there shaking, her face blotchy and pale, mascara streaked. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For once, the girl who always had a performance had nothing. And that silence? That was better than any screaming match we ever had. Update 2. Well, that escalated. If you've read my last post, you know about the party. A lot of you said I should have just kicked her out and been done, but I'm not gonna lie. Watching her entire image crumble in front of the same people she bragged to for years was worth every second. And holy hell, the reactions on here? Some of y'all are savage. My favorite comment was, "You didn't just burn her bridge, dude. You put on a fireworks show over the ashes." Another person said, "Bro really gave her a TED Talk on consequences." Accurate. But here's the thing. Rachel didn't just vanish into the night after everyone left. Oh no. If anything, she doubled down. That night, after the last of her friends bailed, she went feral. Screaming that I'd ruined her life, that she'd never be able to show her face again. She actually threw one of the wine bottles against my wall, shattered it, red splattering across my carpet like a crime scene. Then she locked herself in the bathroom, sobbing so loud my neighbors knocked to ask if I was okay. The next morning, she was on the porch, chain-smoking like a noir character, acting like I was the one who owed her an apology. She had the audacity to say, "You didn't have to humiliate me like that, James. You could have just let me start over." Start over? With me as her safety net? No chance. I told her point blank, "Get your stuff and go, today." She refused, flat out refused, said she had nowhere else to go, that I couldn't legally throw her out. She's not on the lease, for the record. When I tried to start bagging her things, she snatched them back and screamed so loud the dog 2 doors down started barking. I ended up calling my buddy Mark to come over. Bigger guy, steady presence. The second she saw him, she switched tactics. Crocodile tears, whispering about how unsafe I made her feel, like she was the victim. Mark didn't buy it. He stood there, arms crossed, until she finally dragged her duffel outside and stomped off down the street. But here's the kicker. 2 hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "You'll regret this." So yeah, she's out of my apartment, but I don't think this is over. Rachel's the type who thrives on drama, and when she doesn't have control, she creates chaos. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I'm not scared. I'm ready. Because for the first time in years, I'm not her fallback. I'm the one writing the ending. If Rachel had just disappeared after that night, I could have called it closure. A brutal, messy closure, sure, but closure all the same. But Rachel never knew how to lose quietly. When she felt cornered, she lashed out, and now that she was out of my apartment, she turned her whole arsenal on me. The first strike was petty. My car tires, slashed clean through. I found them the next morning on my way to work, 4 flat rubber pancakes sitting under my Civic. She didn't even bother hiding it. She left a note tucked under the wiper that said, "Maybe now you'll think twice before destroying me." I called the cops, filed a report, but deep down I knew nothing would come of it. Unless I caught her with a knife in her hand, it was just unfounded suspicion. The officer basically shrugged, took down my statement, and told me to invest in cameras. So I did. And sure enough, 3 nights later, I caught her on video. Not slashing tires this time, but pacing in my driveway, chain smoking, muttering to herself. At one point, she actually pressed her face against my living room window like something out of a horror movie. Watching the footage afterward made my skin crawl. Then she upped the ante. She started showing up at my job. I work IT for a mid-sized firm downtown. Nothing flashy, just cubicles and servers. But she knew where it was. Twice in 1 week, she happened to be outside at lunch, waiting for me with tears in her eyes, trying to make a scene. The second time, when I walked right past her, she screamed loud enough that half the office heard, "You're the abuser, James. You ruined my life." People stared. HR had questions. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. And as if that wasn't enough, she dragged my family into it. My mom called me one evening, confused and panicked. Rachel had shown up at her house, yes, my mother's house, sobbing about how I threw her out on the street after financially exploiting her for years. My mom doesn't know all the details, just that Rachel and I split ugly. But still, she bought into it for a second. "James, is this true? Did you leave her with nothing?" That cut deep. Because for a split second, Rachel almost rewrote the story. But then, almost like fate, she exposed herself. Mom offered her dinner, and Rachel spent the whole time bragging about Trevor, the condo, the Tesla, the rooftop champagne life. She couldn't help herself. By the end of the night, even my mom called me back furious. "She's a liar, James. Don't worry, I believe you." Still, the damage was done. My reputation, my peace, my sense of safety, all of it felt fragile. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was another threat. Every time I stepped outside, I scanned for her. And yet, part of me knew this was her endgame. Chaos was her last weapon. If she couldn't have me, she'd try to burn me down with her. But what Rachel didn't realize was that she'd already lost the only thing that mattered to her. Her audience. The friends who once cheered her on had ghosted. The real man she flexed with had tossed her. And now the only eyes left on her were mine. And I saw her for exactly what she was. Pathetic. Rachel's last act wasn't a scream, or a plate shattering, or even a knife to my tires. It was silence. And that silence was somehow worse. After weeks of chaos, she just vanished. No more shadow outside my window, no more DMs from burner accounts, no more crying scenes outside my office. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally moved on. Maybe she'd found another Trevor to bankroll her, another audience to clap for her performance. But then came the call. It was a Saturday morning. I was fixing coffee when my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. On the other end was Kelsey, her old brunch queen. Her voice was shaky. She told me Rachel had shown up at a bar the night before, drunk out of her mind, ranting about me and Trevor and how everyone had abandoned her. She caused such a scene that security kicked her out, and when nobody would come pick her up, she just sat on the curb, sobbing, until finally the cops took her in for public intoxication. That was Rachel's finale. Not a glamorous Instagram post, not a rooftop toast. Just a mugshot, her makeup streaked, her eyes wild, her perfect image shattered for everyone to see. And weirdly enough, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won. I just felt free. Because the truth is, Rachel destroyed herself. Trevor just lit the match, and I gave her the stage to burn on. Everything after that was her trying to claw back an audience that had already walked away. I haven't heard from her since. Maybe she's still out there, spinning her story to whoever's left to listen. Maybe she's already lined up another poor bastard to be her next safe option. But that's not my problem anymore. What I do know is this. I'm done. Done being her plan B, her emotional punching bag, her safety net. I've started fixing the damage she left, literally and metaphorically. New tires, new locks, new carpet where that wine bottle exploded. And a new rule for myself. Never confuse pity with love. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't the party where you pull back the curtain. It's knowing you'll never have to share a stage with them again. And that's where I'll leave it. Rachel wanted a real man. She found out the hard way.